for some people, they seem like that seems like a miracle or something, something out of a fantasy book. It don't even look like it's ever going to happen to you. But guess what? It can happen. It happened to us. We went through months of that, and God brought us back from the brink of divorce. Believe it or not.
Sometimes it be so like you was talking about overcast.
Yeah.
And look like the sun is not gonna never shine. Like where like it's gonna be no sunshine. Like you just gonna have cloudy days.
Yeah.
But just want to encourage you that the sun will shine again.
It will. God bless everyone out there in Radio Land. This is Barry and Karen coming to you tonight from Embrace Marriage Ministries. And this is Embracing Marriage with Barry and Karen. And we thank God for the opportunity to come before you tonight. And we are here once again with another podcast. And we just want to just thank God for the opportunity. I mean, I want really, honestly, we really want to thank God and thank you all as well for us reaching our goal for what we were trying to reach, our milestone, our milestone for our podcast. And but we're gonna officially thank you after I say hello to my wife. Hello, wife.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good. So we had a goal. We just started our podcast, I think in February. I think it was about February. So it had we had a. I think if you go back to one of our podcasts when I was talking about the one that we had before, well, the one my brother and I had before, and my wife wasn't involved with this one, and we had a podcast before, and it was back in 17, beginning of 17, and then it kind of stopped at near the end of 17 or middle of 17, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So in the middle of 17, we actually kind of put it on. Well, really just stopped it. We pretty much just stopped doing it. So I left him to kind of do, pretty much what he was doing, and which, by the way, he is doing the new one, and I'll announce that a little later. So when God started dealing with us about doing it, we decided this time, God dealt with me, and this time he said, I want you to do it the way I want you to do it in the beginning, which was us, me and my wife, doing it together. And so here we are, and God gave us the word for what to name it, what to call it, based on all the stuff that you've heard in Testimony of Marriage, all the stuff that we went through, and how that we had to learn to once again embrace marriage, embrace God, embrace marriage, and embrace love. That's our motto.
Yes.
So that's where the name Embrace came from, and that's why we're here talking about embracing marriage, because you have to embrace it. Because a lot of people when you hear the term, it's talking about when we were looking for this name, we was looking for a logo to work with, and we ran into all kinds of different ideas of embracing marriage. They was talking about embracing other kinds of marriage, and that's something that we might talk about one day, kind of our view on whether or not we agree or disagree. But that's a later date, and we gonna talk about, because somewhere along the way that is going to come up, because we're really dealing with we're heterosexual marriage, and we dealing with monogamous relationships, and we don't deal with this other wild stuff that's out there. But it'll be something that we'll probably address, because we want you to understand our views and what we believe as far as that. Now that might engender some people to say, hey, I don't want to listen to y'all no more, but we're not doing this so you can get your downloads, although we appreciate that. we're doing this because this is what he wants us to do. And so we're doing this to help people. And so that's what it's about, helping people. And if us telling you that the relationship that you're in is not the relationship you should be in, is helping you, then guess what? That's what we'll do. So I'm gonna climb off that soapbox and get back to what I was saying. We had a goal, because like I said, we just started. We had a goal on podbean.com. You can go to we'll go to our website, which we're getting ready to change the address, but the address is now, you go to embracingmarriagetogether.wordpress.com. You can go there, and we have a link for our podcast. And if you notice that, it shows us how many downloads we actually have. So we had, when we started in, like I said, February. And we had, I think February, we only did maybe one episode. And so we did pretty good for us downloads. We had maybe starting off, we had maybe 20, which was pretty good starting off with one episode. So then later on, as we started getting more episodes, we started getting more downloads. Well, we started noticing near the end of March, we had reached close to 60, I think it was 60, 70. And then I said that we were trying, and so at the place it was going, we should be at about the end of March, we should be at least at 100. And so I was talking to my brother. I said that was our goal for both of us, really. My wife said that later, that was her goal too for him. And so we got to the end of March, and I think at March 31st we was at 90, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. So it was 10 short, which was no, we was at 80. Yeah, we was at 90. We was at 90, and so April 1st rolled around. It started, goal was 100. That was a milestone for us starting off. We wanted to just get to 100 downloads, so we kind of pushed it, kind of told them, hey, download and share it with other people, like, share, subscribe on YouTube. We was pushing it, so because we was getting down to the wire. So it finally kind of stalled. I think like 2-3 days it never moved. It's from 91. I think we about 3 days it moved from 91. We stayed at 91 for like almost a week. And so we ended up, we just, like I say, we just kept doing them, because God determines numbers. We don't count numbers. God doesn't count numbers. He makes numbers count. So we just kept doing them, kept planting. That's how it is when you starting something. It's just like you plant the garden. You basically just keep planting, keep planting seeds. You keep sowing, and eventually something's gonna come out of it. Well, our goal was to reach 100, so once we get 100 downloads, we say, well, hey, we get a certain amount of podcasts under our belt, we can start basically getting people to support us financially. And so we got, I think one day when we did this last episode, we jumped from 91 to 97 because people downloaded the last podcast. And then one day, I think was it yesterday, we reached it. Mm-hmm. No, was it? Yeah, it was just last night. We was working on our podcast, and it was 99 yesterday when we was working on it. And then I flipped back over to look at it, and we had reached 100. And we thank God for the 100 downloads starting off on the podcast that only been up for about maybe almost 2 months. That's pretty good. Now, our goal now is just to go from, we're going to do them in increments of 50. So right now we're at 108 when I looked at it. It could be more, but like I said, we're reaching for 150, and we're believing for God for the end of the month to be at 150 or closer to 200. But we're gonna start with 150. But then we start to seeing that 150 is we're reaching 150 for the middle of the month, then we'll go and shoot for the 200. So we're just getting up there. The reason being is because I think the more exposure people will start to notice who we are, they'll start to really see that God is really blessing us to do this. and he'll start to really see people start to get help. I believe that people are downloading not because they just, got nothing better to do. They actually are looking for something. And I'm glad that they had the opportunity to come forth and look at our page. So that's my little long introduction. Okay. we just want you to know that. Now, last week we talked about, last podcast we talked about the season marriage is what we're dealing with. And we talked about winter being one of the seasons in marriage. And we decided, and we talked about how that marriage does go through these 4 seasons. Eventually, they will go through all 4. Sometimes they stay in one more than the other, but eventually you will go through these 4, which is winter, spring, summer, and fall, just like the physical seasons that we have each year. And if we're familiar with the seasons in our physical seasons that we have, we'll be more familiar with how the seasons in our marriage are. And we talked about winter, how it being a time of barrenness and coldness, and we talked about some of the things we went through and how it demonstrated that kind of season in our life. Because you do get to the point sometimes where the only thing that you do the whole time, from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep, is argue. Or you never disagree, or this is a time when divorces are prevalent. This is a time when separations are more than likely to happen, because winter, there's this non-productive, there is coldness, there is no sense of emotion, there is no heat, there is no life, there is nothing. You feel like you just dead, because things die during the winter as well. Mm-hmm. So there's certain things in your life that's just basically your marriage just goes into either it goes into death or hibernation, because either things hibernate in winter or they die. So a lot of times things just kind of hibernate. They sitting under the surface waiting for the change of the season. Give you an example. They had the lady that raised me. This comes to mind when I said that. The lady that raised me used to raise some tulips. There was a certain type of litter of tulip that she used to raise. And she would always, every season, because they usually grew around about the late spring, summer, something like that. Mm-hmm. In the wintertime, she would cut for the winter, fall, or whatever. She'd cut these things down to the root. And so the next season, they have a whole new flower. And I would never understand how that flower got there. But then I found out about it later on as I studied it, that it has a bulb for a root. And that bulb stays alive the whole season, and it basically just hibernates until the season changes and the life comes back into that bulb, and it produces that new flower. Mm-hmm. So it just gets cut down to its root. It stays there and hibernates during the season and stays in the ground, the warmth, and never dies. It just stays there and waits until the proper time to grow. And some things in your life does happen like that. Yes. Some things in your marriage happen like that, where they feel like there's a proper time for it to grow. In our case, tonight though, we're going to talk about spring, which is why I'm segueing into this using that example, because in the spring that flower came up because it had the right atmosphere and there was something there that caused life to come back into it. Spring is the time of life. It's the time of new beginnings. It is the time of restoration. The most important seasons happen during the spring. In the Jewish season, springtime, Passover happened because it was the beginning of their season of newness and renewal, restoration and deliverance and from enslavement. In our terms, it's Easter. Spring is usually associated with Easter. So that's why you see a lot of colors are bright and everything is just vibrant and everything just looks so wonderful because spring is here.
Yes.
But sometimes, if you watch the weather, sometimes spring has a tendency to still have some of the old season's traits. So even though spring is wonderful, there's the temperature's just right, the sun shines just enough times, you get longer, you get longer nights and shorter days, and or vice versa. But you know, your sun is more prevalent, and it's different. And when you're in your marriage, a spring of marriage, usually people in the spring of their marriage is usually people that just got married. They're
Yes.
newlyweds. They hadn't been married that long. They're in the spring of the marriage. You know, she's perfect, he's perfect. They can't do no wrong. You know, and they're wonderful, and they love one another, and they
No
never
fault finding.
no fault finding,
No nitpicking.
no nitpicking.
None of that.
She got a coat bottle shape. He has muscles in the cut. You know, everybody's, it's Ken and Barbie time. You know, they wonderful. You know, nothing wrong, because spring has a tendency to do that, because everybody's mood is better in the spring. But like I said, there are also some things that happens in spring that affects people in a negative way. Give you an example of kind of give you an anatomy and give you an example of different things that kind of relate to it. Can't you think of the word now? But analogy, that's the word I'm looking for. Give you an analogy of different things. One, like I said earlier, some people are still experiencing winter, even though spring is here. Technically, on the calendar, we're in spring.
Yes.
But according to the weather, some places, they're still winter.
Yeah. Still getting snow.
They're still getting snow. Snow associated with the winter season. So therefore, snow in spring means to us in marriage that there's still some unresolved issues that have passed over into the because it's also the time of restoration and resurrection of life. So if something that reminds you of death comes into the part of your marriage, which you were trying to get together, especially if you went through a winter season and then now you're getting things back in order, you know, you're talking again and life is coming back and you're loving one another, you're holding hands, you're intimate again, and you're sharing moments and you're sharing new things, and new things are happening. And then all of a sudden, here comes some snow or some ice. So where we're from, we had this term we called during the time of the season last week. They called it Easter snap, which is a cold front comes during that part of the year, and it's cold during this time of year, even though spring is here. And sometimes you get a cold snap in your marriage, where things will come up from the old season that you haven't dealt with, and you got to deal with it in the old season, in the new season. Right. So like I said, the thing is, when you have that happen, so what do you do, Barry, when these things happen? Well, you got to work through them. I mean, if say for example, we can only use us because we're the only ones we can use. So, like we have an issue come up from the past when we went through all this stuff. Now we talk about it a lot. We do. We actually talk about it in a way that is kind of like it was. We were just surprised at how we acted. Pretty much, we was talking about how we acted.
Yeah.
And the more we talked about it, we realized how really deluded and misguided we were. We weren't really in my best sense at that time. You know, we was senseless in the way where we acted, but we didn't realize because we was trying to protect each other. We was trying to protect ourselves from each other. And so, what it is, if something comes up in our marriage, if something comes up, and put it like this, something comes up in your marriage that's from a season, you're trying to work things out, and these things come up, just work through them. Don't let it bring you back into winter, because there are going to be periods of time where things will come up where you remind you of the old season. It happened to us. Something happened I did that reminded her of the old season, and she almost went into that place. And we almost got pulled back in the winter. Yes. Either one of us, both of us did that. I did something I got in the mode one time, and we didn't realize it just happened. I mean, we just went silent, and it wasn't because we were mad. It's because we stopped to discern the spirit behind it.
Yes.
And so, because a lot of times if we get in those seasons, Now me, I probably had gotten pulled into that, but her it was different because now she's thinking different than she was then. But I didn't know that because I'm still working on thinking different. So now I realize that when she's like that, it's not because the fact that she's upset with me, it's that or she doesn't or she I'm feeling like I'm going back into that moment. It's just that she needs to know what's going on, and she needs and so we both have to be silent and listen
Yeah.
to the Spirit of God telling us what's going on, because a lot of things creep up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we had something like that happen. So you're gonna get snow in winter, and you're gonna get winter sometimes kind of creep into your spring. And when you have those things come up, you gotta deal with them in the right way.
That's true.
Another thing that pretty much comes in the middle of that's kind of detrimental to a lot of people during this season is pollen. Pollen has a negative effect on a lot of people because of allergies. Sometimes there is allergies that come up because of the environment. There are certain things that'll happen that'll flare up because actually that's what an allergy is something that flares up certain things in you that's adverse.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have flare-ups in your marriage in this season that you're in when you're trying to work it out. If he forgets to make that call, that's a flare-up. If he gets to show you what he's looking at on his phone, that's a flare-up. If he locks his phone and changes the password and don't tell you, that's a flare-up. Because certain things will come and cause you to be flared up or inflamed, because that's what the inflammation is, inflaming you get inflamed, because that's what an allergy is. It's all these pollen does is it inflames the tissues and the sinuses, and it causes you to sneeze and cause hay fever comes and sinus problems and people just sneezing and coughing and all kind of stuff. So it happens.
Yes.
So these flare-ups come, and you have to learn how to deal with these flare-ups. So how you deal with the flare-ups? Well, just like you dealt with the flare-ups in your physical body by taking the medicine or an antihistamine to try to stand against it, you got to get into the Word of God and change your mind to stand against the thoughts and the feelings and the impulses that you'll have from the past. Because you got to change the way that you do things. Because if you do it the same way, the way you was doing it, then you're going to keep getting the same results.
That's true.
So, you got something you want to share, babe? Just I want us to say.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's like yeah, like I say, that is the truth. Because like I say, some things he calls it. I call it reminders.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it I do call reminders, and I had a whole lot of reminders, like I said, in the past. And he, like I say, he called it flare-ups, and I think it was this recently.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, was it something with the phone or something? And I almost went there.
Yeah, it was a tone, and I can tell when she's like that, a tone changes. You know, it was I'm a techie, y'all. My wife's not tech. She getting there, but she not techie like me. If there's a feature on the phone that I know that I can use, I will use it when she don't use. She'll go through a contact list, find a person, and punch the button and hits in and dial the number on the phone. Me, I say, hey, I say, okay, Google, pull up such and such, dial such a number. I do that. So what happened? I Google dialed my brother's phone number, and the thing is, so Google keeps it, so in case you hang up, you can call him back. So it had it still in the phone, and I had talked to him like 3 hours. So it still was there. So that night she happened to see it, and she turned it around and she said, now at first when she said, what is this? She didn't say it. She just said it normal. What is this? And then she turned around and said, I know that this is different than what don't change. I know that this is different. I said, So I learned that when she do that, my tone can't change. See, the Bible says in Proverbs 15:1, a soft answer turns away wrath. But so if your spouse is upset, the last thing you want to do is aggravate it. Because we had and then we was talking about that. A lot of times, if you have to de-escalate the situation, not escalate it by bringing more anger into the situation. And so if I'd have got defensive, and I'd say, and I actually, when she turned around, I knew it instantly what it was. I said, I used Google to dial Willie, my brother, and if you want to hear my brother, I'm going to do a shameless plug right here. If you want to hear my brother, he's on Podbean. Also, he's on DestinationForVictoryRadio.podbean.com. Check him out. So now, so she said, well, this is because we had problems with dollars. So that was another issue. Mm-hmm. So when she said, well, is this such and such and such? I said, no. I said, Google searches out whatever. It's a search feature. It searches everything. It'll search your phone. Your dollar number from you. It's called Google Assistant, what it's called. So a Google Assistant will dial your number. It'll look up stuff for you. It'll pull up things. It'll pull up any app that you call out. You say, well, you tell it to pull up an app, it'll pull up that. So it's Google Assistant. She didn't know anything. She don't use it. So when you don't know when I told her what it was, she was familiar with it. She knew what it was, but she just didn't know it could do all that because she never really used it. She don't use it. If she had to Google something, she'd type it. Yeah, she does. I voice it, and she knows me. I voice it. I'll tell it to do something. I do that with my katana. I do it. I have my mic on here. I use my camera mic for my katana and all that. So I'll just punch the mic on it and just say, hey, such and such, such, and tell it whatever. Or ask Alexa, like she said one time what we was looking for. Sometimes these things don't listen well. We was looking for the word aggrieved. I asked Alexa, I said, what does aggrieved mean? It gave me a definition of green. It gave me a definition of grief. I'm gonna look it up. So I asked Katana gave me a whole definition. So because he could hear me better. Sometimes, and that goes back to that too. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when you're communicating with each other, mm-hmm. how you hear is just as important than what you hear.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's what we was talking about before. Mm-hmm. When you're in spring now, mm-hmm. you're in the spring of your marriage and you're going through renewal, you're going to run into hay fever, you're going to run into a little snow. Mm-hmm. But what is going to happen is how you handle it and how you hear at that moment mm-hmm. makes all the difference in the world. Yeah.
Well, I have a question. Uh-huh. How do you know when your season change? When it's changing from winter to spring?
I'm glad you asked that question. Just to answer that one. It's just like if you the physical seasons, you kind of know when you notice that things that weren't budding will start to bud. Mm-hmm. The trees, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier, when we noticed the winter change around here, even though we still was seeing the effects of winter, mm-hmm. it was the trees were budding because we was getting pollen. That's the only way we knew that mm-hmm. the season had changed, because we was getting pollen. Yeah. And the only way you get pollen, the trees had to bud. Mm-hmm. And we noticed the trees starting to bud, even though winter seemed like it was hanging on. Mm-hmm. And in the marriage, how you know that the season changes, certain things will come to life that wasn't alive in your marriage at that time. Yeah,
you start to communicate.
Yeah. First thing will come back will be basically your communication. Yeah. Your communication will start to change. You'll start to really listen to one another, because before in winter you weren't.
Yeah, your understanding, you have better understanding.
Yeah. You have your understanding is better. Your the way that you relate to one another changes, and you actually go back into the moment where you were when you first met. Mm-hmm. You basically kind of starting over, really. You start to talk to one another again. You start to relate to one another again.
feel that closeness.
and your closeness starts coming. Yeah.
Yeah.
And but it'll seem like it though. Now, like say when you go into those spells of winter, when you still see snow, in your mind you'll think, well, we never left. No, you're still in spring, because the trees showing you is still in spring. There is some signs showing you still in spring, but you're going to get some effects from this previous season because certain things just seem to not let go. We had an issue that we had not resolved. And when it came up in our spring season, we realized we got to deal with that. We got to sit down, and I would say that. And I said we got to sit down and discuss that because that right there needs to be resolved.
Yeah. So I mean, it was still snowing in spring.
Girl, we still getting snow, but it's spring. Still getting snow, and some people are. They got people that getting foots of snow right now, and we're getting spring. But spring usually brings about inclement weather in one form of fashion. You get a lot of rain in spring. You get a lot of because rain is the rain is essential for the seed time. Seed time and harvest here in the Bible talks about the former and latter rain. The former rain is the spring rain. Latter rain is the harvest rain. The former rain was the rain that came right about this time that would help the seeds to germinate. It was that rain, that flooding rain, that helped the gardens, and they planted barley and fields and stuff and rice, and you need to flood that in order to grow it. So if they got too much water, it would ruin the crop. But if they got the right amount of rain where it wouldn't be a drought, they would be able to sustain a harvest when the next rain comes. And so a lot of times you would get, and that the rain represents the spirit. The Spirit of God comes in that marriage again, and he revives and renews it. The first thing he does is he renews the love that you had, because the Bible said the love of God is shed abroad in the heart by the Spirit of God. So he's the one that spreads that love in your heart again. But if you allow that love to spread in your heart again, then it's just going to go from there. That's the sign that, things are starting to change. Your attitude toward each other changes.
Yeah. And that was one of the greatest things that I noticed. That our attitudes was changing. The way we talk, especially we was impatient at first. Now we're more patient.
Yeah.
And I'm, now more willing to listen.
Yeah.
Instead of assuming. A lot of times I did more assuming than I did hearing and listening. I mean, I just assumed this and assumed that. And I said, well, so now that's one of the things that I had to learn to do.
Yeah, and I did too, and I accused and judged, and I wasn't patient because I was figuring, well, hey, once we said yes last night, I said I'm sorry, and hey,
and you need to accept this.
You need to accept that, and I wasn't.
Yeah.
And she wasn't accepting that because number one, she had to process that, and so I wasn't giving her time to. And when she did, though, when I let her alone and she finally did, then it was different.
Yeah.
We learned how to, but I think, like I said, the season basically changed.
Yeah, that's when you know that it's changing, because you don't get a lot of that. I call it roof.
Yeah, you don't. It doesn't affect you as much, and you start to do things different. Right. You don't do things the same, and you start to change the way you do things.
And your mindset change.
Yeah, you start to change your mindset. So, and I know that for some people, they seem like a miracle or something. Something out of a fantasy book. It don't even look like it's ever going to happen to you. But guess what? It can happen. It happened to us. We went through months of that, and God brought us back from the brink of divorce. Believe it or not.
Cause sometimes it'd be so like you was talking about, overcast.
Yeah.
And look like the sun is not gonna never shine. Like where like it's gonna be no sunshine. Like you just gonna have cloudy days.
Yeah.
But just want to encourage you that the sun will shine again.
It will. You better take that word, because she's saying something. Y'all have to understand, y'all. We do this at night, so we shutting down.
but the sun, it will.
Yeah, it will.
And you will have better days. like I say, it wasn't always like that. We did have.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
We have to mention that.
Yeah, so we are gonna we're gonna give y'all a little bit out about our spring.
Yeah.
So we do have date nights.
Yeah.
And we go on dates. We like to shoot pool.
Mm-hmm.
We like to go to the park, take walks in the park, and so it's a lot that we do. We eat out and enjoy one another company. So and I just thank God for our friendship. So that's a lot of things that was going on in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
We wasn't enjoying each other, even being around each other. I mean, it would be times I would tell him, look, he would tell me, look, won't you just go somewhere? I'd be like, no, you go somewhere. You need to go somewhere. You need to get out of here. You need to, so because we wouldn't enjoy each other's company. We like literally hated to be around each other. I'm like, no, you go. You just bye. Go. So that's how you know the difference when your season change. So now we just love to be around each other. We be at work and he'll come around me, and then days that we off, different days, we find ourselves missing each other and want to be. So those are some of the signs that your season have changed. Yeah. Because you long for each other. You want to be around each other versus you need to buy. Yeah.
You need to find a friend or something.
You can put some clothes on. You can hit the road.
Yeah. I mean, we've had so many different. Like I said, we don't even have enough time or tape to tell y'all in detail some of the crazy things that we said to and did, because we wrote a lot of it down and. We wrote everything that we said, and my wife was talking about that day. I said, it's funny. When we were going through all this, we wrote everything we could possibly write, but then now we hardly write. We ain't writing nothing. But you know what? I think the reason why, and I was wondering about that, I said, she right. But then, too, I thought about it. I said, you know what? I think because at that time we could not express it to anyone, really. No. And we had no other way to express and vent all this stuff. So we basically just wrote. Yeah. What we had planned to do was take a lot of this stuff and put it in a book, because a lot of this stuff we weren't writing all of it wasn't like hate. We was writing
how we felt.
And we wrote a lot of stuff. When we even had good days and bad days, we wrote. So we was basically writing our progress and how we was going through, and I think I said we could have wrote a book just on some of that stuff, not all of it, and I think down the road we plan to. We didn't keep any of it, but it's in our heads, and we can basically just write it down again. Yeah. And so, not the bad stuff, but the stuff that we had, like we telling you.
Yeah, how we because how we encouraged each other. We encouraged each other. Like I say, we had a lot of bad days, but we had a lot of days where we encouraged each other. So that's how we knew that we was coming into a new season, because he would always encourage me and push me to my purpose. And he always would tell me, this is what I want. What we doing now is what he always wanted us to do. He always wanted me to come into his world. So I knew, I said, well, okay, season is changing. Yeah. When you start to hear different and see different and positive, and now you starting to make deposits. Yeah. Writing me love letters and.
Yeah, and I think I owe a few too. We because we ain't been sitting still long enough to write nothing. So I owe a few. So we'll get still now.
So those are some of the things. When you just start doing what you did when you first met. Can't wait to see each other, and I call it that ooh la la feeling. When you don't see no wrong and you don't find no fault. So that's it. Those were some of the signs. I said, well, our season is changing and things is turning around, and the Lord is restoring. Yeah. And how He read books to me, and so.
Yeah, so we're doing a lot of the stuff we did when we first got married, and we
still hold y'all, still holding hands, still. We go to the mall like two little teenagers. We still hold, we hold hands and hug, and if y'all see us in the mall, y'all think we bunch of teenagers.
Because and a lot of people don't realize that every time I meet her or greet her, I kiss her. So And so I don't care how many times I see her a day, she gonna get kissed.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, we laugh and we joke around, and I mean, we just be joking, and we be in the mall, we see people, we be,
Oh yeah, you believe me, you go to the mall, you got plenty to laugh at, so
Yeah, y'all really think we best friends? We be in the stores because we be like, oh, did you see what that they had on? Like that, that don't make no sense.
Yeah.
So we do stuff like that.
We do
so,
stuff like, but that's the way we.
And at first, I mean, that's how friendship is. But like I said, but when you're in that winter,
oh no,
no.
Everything's suspect.
Yeah, because we would go to, I think, to Walmart one time, and we was like that, and we almost got into an argument in Walmart. Now, like, what you can, in my mind, I'm like, let's stay in the car, just in this old bad mood, and that, he's had a, I don't know what kind of mood swing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we had these menopause moments, and I have menopause, you have menopause, so it's crazy.
So that's how you could tell a different kind of when it's when your winter is kind of
when the ice is melting and when everything is running, and everything's growing again. That's how you know. Well, we coming up into our we gotta bring it to a close. Like I say, we could go forever on that.
Yeah.
But because even though our winter was long and we didn't go into detail, we wanted to go into more in our spring, talking about how that we come through our winter, because next one is summer. And summer is basically where we're getting ready to drift into in our natural season. And so we talk about the difference in summer, and you're going to see some parallels in summer and winter that makes a difference, and how some people still can't get into winter from any. You can get into winter from any of these seasons, but staying in your season is important, and is something that you have to always remember. And like I said, we want to let you know that you can reach us on our website. As of tomorrow, we probably was going to change. So, but right now, the address to this website that we have now is embracingmarriagetogether.wordpress.com. You can go there. That's embracingmarriagetogether.wordpress.com. You can go there, and it's going to have links to this podcast, have links to our YouTube page. If you listen to us on YouTube, like, share, subscribe. If you listen to it on Google Play, you can check us out there. Or like I said, we're going to be on different areas, but mainly the ones that we focus on is our Facebook page, our podcast, and also our YouTube. So if you're listening to us on these different medias in these areas, we just ask you just to kind of just download them, check them out, leave a comment, like it, let us know how you enjoy it, if you enjoy it at all. So we thank God for you listening to us tonight. This is Embracing Marriage with Barry and Karen. And we saying good night and God bless.
Good night. And just remember that the sun will shine again.
Amen.
This is spring.
That's it.